So episode 2 in the can now, with Rose, who was awesome. Like,
she was great.
So good. So, I mean, I was worried how we would follow Lewis and the first guest.
Yeah.
But Rose was brilliant. And again, similar to Lewis, so knowledgeable about her field.
And passionate. There was a lot of passion because she's obviously just gone through everything that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched it, watch it. So we discussed a lot around maternity leave and actually returning back to work for women that have had children and how that impacts you as an individual, the culture within the organisation. And she came packed with stats. So if you're interested in learning about some of that stuff, Rose was super knowledgeable.
A lot of which were quite scary.
Yeah. So one of the stats in particular, there was a survey done of 848 women, all of which had children. Only 24% of those went back to work. I think, that just shows potentially there is a mix in there in that sort of 76% of women that don't want to go back to work and want to stay at home,
or aren't encouraged to by their employers.
And then there's probably a huge percentage there that simply don't see that as a feasible option because of the working environment or the potential opportunity that is waiting for them on when they return back to work. So that was really interesting. Only 24% of women returning back to work after having a child. Out of that 24%, 57% then leave within 2 years, either due to redundancy or mental health, which again is another scary stat. You're left with what? 12% of nearly 1,000 women being sort of back in the workforce.
It is scary. I mean, we both know this is obviously a subject that's very close to our hearts, considering both of our wives have recently gone on maternity or just returned from maternity. So it was something that I guess hit home a little bit because my wife is one of those people that have gone back to work.
Yep.
I don't want her to have to quit within 2 years because of poor mental health or because she's not feeling comfortable in her work.
100%.
That's horrible. And I think that's the chat with Rose really hit home that we need to be much, much more as employers and as husbands, friends, colleagues, whatever, be more aware and supportive of people coming back into the workplace, because it's scary enough bringing a child into the world, right?
Yeah.
Then having to transition from a role to being a parent, and then from a parent back into a working role. So it's crazy.
We talked a little bit about, and Rose mentioned this, but there's such a huge untapped talent pool there.
Yeah.
Of amazing talent that just isn't being utilised because the working conditions aren't suitable for their needs.
Or the environment. Well, again, it was really interesting, and I hadn't really thought about this before, but when Rose was saying that obviously getting back into work and returning to work from maternity leave is one thing, but your integration and your re-onboarding has to be really, really good. But even then, when you're back in the business, a lot of businesses, and Rose said, didn't she, there's a culture of if an event is at night, or team drinks are in the evening, or team get-togethers are in the evening, that's when
parents have to be parents.
Yeah. So again, are you then ostracized? Are you being left out? Are you feeling like you're not part of that team? Because you can't be, because you need to be home and care for
the couple of things that we talked about. Keep in touch days and that re-onboarding that you just mentioned were really, something that haven't really occurred to me. But in talking about it in the episode, and you start to realize that actually, if you were to leave a company for a year and then return, particularly in startups and scale-ups where technology and processes are changing on a monthly basis, you're literally returning to a new company, and yet the expectations for you to start and crack on and do your job as normal are still there, rather than a re-onboarding. These are the new systems, these are new people, new processes. I don't know a business that is doing that currently.
Sometimes I go on holiday, come back and I forget my password. And I'm not being in a business for a year, and then the expectations are still the same.
And then the other thing is keep in touch days. I think some businesses do this well, not many.
It's a tick box for most businesses.
It's a tick box for most businesses, but Rose was suggesting that actually it's really important. If anything, it's a bit of a lifeline, because you're sort of you may be starting to feel isolated and lonely, particularly in those earlier months of having a newborn. And actually, that having those keep in touch days can firstly make your onboarding a lot smoother when you join the workforce, but also keep your sanity to some degree. I think that could be something that a lot of businesses could take away from that.
Yeah, totally.
What they're doing about keep in touch days, what they're doing about their re-onboarding of returning mothers, and also returning fathers, if anything. Some businesses now you get 6 months or so paternity leave. Right?
Well, Rose was saying that Klarna's very progressive in
it's parental leave, isn't it? Yeah. So that's interesting.
During the episode, Ben, you said that you felt maybe a bit uncomfortable because you was two men talking about the maternity process. But I remember saying to you that I think actually it affects that affects the family, right? Both parents. So on that note, how do you think that what was discussed in that episode will resonate with the audience of the
podcast? Again, it's a really good question. I think it's obviously going to resonate well, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's going to land very well because of Rose's honesty.
Yeah.
Like, it was, the stuff she was talking about was quite exposing.
Yeah.
And she could have felt quite vulnerable doing that. But I think the fact that we are, don't get me wrong, we're not shining a massive light on it. We've only got about 7 listeners. But the fact that we are trying to kind of back the cause of parents returning to the workforce, and it's something that we do have first-hand experience of because we've gone through it ourselves. I think that honesty and that transparency and that vulnerability will really work for our audience, and I think people will take a look. I think
so. And also for anyone that's potentially struggling with finding talent pools, like we're highlighting an opportunity to find amazing people in an apparently underutilized workforce. There are lots of mothers out there with great skills and characteristics to add to businesses. If anything, like when we look at management and leadership, empathy is up there with some of the highest qualities. Absolutely. Women, particularly with parents, are known to have extremely high empathy skill, like empathy and empathetic skills. So I think it's a really good opportunity for people to identify a new talent pool and actually figure out a way of making that talent pool or attracting that talent pool by looking at their working conditions and maybe finding more flexible working arrangements to fit their business needs.
Definitely.